Hello and welcome back to another car repair video. In this video we're going to put front brake pads and rotors on this 2002 Ford Taurus. So let's get started by jacking the right front of the car up. You can take notice where I'm jacking the car on the engine cradle assembly, which is a good solid secure place to jack the car at. But of course I'm going to put a jack stand underneath the same engine cradle assembly. I never trust a jack alone, especially that jack. If you noticed, it was to the maximum height pretty much. Although I did get a little bit more just to bring the jack stand up one more click so the tire and wheel was off the ground that we can remove and get work on the brakes. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch socket to remove the lug nuts, and like I say, we'll use also the cordless impact wrench. Personally, I hate these lug nuts with this chrome cover. You go to take them off and they get stuck in the socket because rust gets between that cover and the actual metal lug nut. But anyhow, they're coming off, and that is the last one. And now we can slide the tire and wheel off the car. And with the tire and wheel out of our way, now we can get to the next step, get more serious on proceeding. We're going to remove the brake caliper, and here I'm showing you the location of the bolts that hold the caliper to the steering knuckle. There's two of them, and they are 12 millimeter. I actually would like to correct myself, a statement I made earlier. The caliper isn't bolted to the steering knuckle, but the brake caliper bracket, which we will be removing here once we get the caliper out of our way. There, the caliper slid right off. And there's our brake pads, which you can see there's a good bit of wear on them yet, but the rotor was rusted up. The reason this is being changed in this car, when you hit the brakes, they trembled, especially going down a little bit of a hill. And now I'm going to take and wear the caliper so it's not hanging by the flex hose, and hang it up to one of the coils on the coil spring out of our way, and that takes the tension off the flex hose, and the brake caliper will stay out of our way while we keep working on replacing the pads and the rotors. And you can see where I hooked it around the coil. And now we are going to remove the brake caliper bracket, and I'll show you first the location of the bolts, which are fairly simple to see once you're back behind. And these are 15 millimeter. I'm going to take and use a 1/2 inch drive socket on this instead of a 3/8. These are usually fairly tight. A lot of times I even think if they weren't replaced, although as old as this car is, they probably were, they Loctite them from the factory, but it didn't come too bad. There's one. Let the bolt in also when you loosen the first one. Don't take it out the whole way till you get them both loose, or when you go to do the other one, the caliper wants to swing back and forth. I mean, not the caliper, but the brake caliper bracket. Okay, there goes the brake caliper bracket. Now, in a perfect world, this rotor should just slide off, but living in Pennsylvania and a climate with road salt, it's rusted fast. And since we're replacing the rotor anyhow, wouldn't want to do this with a good rotor. I'm going to take a hammer and break the rust free, and hopefully we can get this off of here soon without too much trouble. Okay, the hammer did the trick, and there is the rusty old rotor. It's not in the greatest shape. I've seen worse, I've seen better. but there it is. It also is getting fairly thin, especially the inside part of the rotor. So that is why. Then we'll go get them here. I have new rotors and brake pads for the car. And there I purchased these off of Amazon. Yeah, they're packaged the same as buying from the big box parts store, but for half the cost in the box and in the plastic and with the coating to prevent the rotor rusting from in storage. And I want to take some wax and grease remover and 2 rags and get rid of this grease from the shipping. Use 1 rag soaked with it to start with, wipe it on, and then we'll use the other rag here shortly to dry it off. I'm happy on that side. I don't really feel any more of the wax and grease. Now turn it over and do the other side of the rotor the same. Alright, now that I have that wiped down, we'll take it and slide it on the car and make sure it fits. I actually could have done that before cleaning it off, but it was good. And there's the box with the brake pads. These rotors and the pads were bought as a complete kit on Amazon. I will try to remember if they're still available to put the link in the description down below if you are interested in the same product. I don't remember what I paid in it. How stuff changes anymore on prices. What I paid, it could be twice as much in a couple weeks, or it could have went down. And there's some brake hardware that came with it. Those I'll be using. These are not on this car. That must be one of those deals. These brake pads fit something else. And there is our brake caliper bracket. And those brake caliper slides you see are moving nice and free, which is a miracle. And you can see they're still greased up well. Usually those are rusted fast and give you trouble, but luckily they're good on this. That saves a lot of aggravation. Nevertheless, even though the slides are good, before reinstalling this brake caliper bracket, I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper, and where the brake pad rests on the caliper bracket, I'm going to clean this rust off. Okay, we have half of the brake caliper bracket cleaned up. Now we'll do the other half with our sandpaper. If you were in a hurry, you could probably use a bench vise with a wire wheel, but I'm pleased with the sandpaper, and it gets into the crevices nice to clean it. There's no rust when we put the new pads on. As you can see, it don't take that much to actually, even with the sandpaper and manually sanding, that much to get the rough layer of rust off, and just shine it up a little bit. Again, if it was worse, real scaly or something, you could take and hammer and chip at it some, but none of necessity in this case. And now we're going to reinstall the brake caliper bracket. But of course, make sure the rotor's in place first. And as you can see, there's only one way the bracket goes on. I started to put it on the upside down, but there was no way it was going to work. And now that I have it in place, I'm going to put both bolts in temporarily, finger tight before tightening them completely. Okay, I'm going to grab the 1/2-inch ratchet and tighten the bolts that hold the caliper bracket. If you want to be technical, I'm just going to make them as tight as I can with this 1/2-inch drive ratchet. The torque on them are 65 to 87 foot-pounds. Okay, now it's time to open the brake pads, and we'll put those on. They are the same in and outboard shoes on this car. Not all vehicles are that the case, but it is on this car, which makes matters fairly simple. And if you look, there's your anti-rattle clip that goes towards where the caliper will be sitting against it, and they just slide into place nice and easy. And there's a close-up of how it does sit into the brake caliper bracket. Okay, now it's time to reinstall the brake caliper, but before doing so, we have to compress the piston back into place. I have an actual tool to do this job, brake caliper piston. I think they call it a spreader, but anyhow, you can use a C-clamp if you don't have one. I'm just going to take an old brake pad and the disc pad spreader and tighten it against, and we'll grab a wrench. And when you're doing this, the piston should slide back in easily. If it does not, you have a problem either with the caliper itself or the brake flex hose. And now I can remove the tool, and you see the caliper piston is back flush with the caliper body itself, and there's a clip to come with it. I'm going to take the old one out, and since they gave the new one, and install the new one. Okay, now we can take the brake caliper and slide it back down over the new brake pads and onto the caliper bracket. And again, those springs on top of the brake pads give a little tension back against the brake caliper. You just have to push a little bit to push it into plate. And I'm going to start the lower bolt in the caliper first, and then I'll start the upper one in next. And I'm going to tighten these using a 3/8-inch drive ratchet. And on the technical torque on them, if you want to be technical, was 23 to 28 foot-pounds. But again, I'm just going to make them as tight as I can with the 3/8-inch drive ratchet. I'm confident on it. We're not working on a motor or anything. Okay, this concludes about half the job of the front brakes. It's time to put the tire and wheel back on the right side of the car. And we're going to take and again turn the lug nuts on finger tight first to begin with. Now I'm going to use the cordless impact wrench to tighten them on before I set the car down on the ground again. And now I'm going to jack the car using the edge of the engine cradle assembly like at the early part of the video. Unless you jumped to this part, you had seen where I jacked the car and rested the jack stand earlier in the video. One way or the other, it's a good place to jack the car that's good and secure. You could also jack it at the rocker panel where it's made to use the jack that comes with the car if you have a flat tire, but this car is rusty in the rocker panels like so many of these old Tauruses, so now again I prefer where I jacked it over that. We will have no incidents of messing my car up well, actually it was my cousin's car. Now I'm going to torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. And yes, I feel this is important because of the aluminum wheels. They have a tendency to work loose. And now an even more important step after you're done working with disc brakes of any form. Once you're done, again, you could do both sides if you're working on both, but I'm showing this again in both videos. I'm making one for the right front and the left front. You need to pump the brake pedal back up because when you compress the piston, you have to get it back up where it belongs.